Hi there, and welcome to the Father-Daughter Experience. Thanks for joining us today. We had such an outpouring of excitement and interest around our first couple of episodes around our How Did We Get Here, as well as our 20 questions that we actually got some from some of the folks that have been listening. So we thought what we would do today is take a selection of those questions and answer them to expand on some of the things that we covered during our first couple of episodes.
Our lore, if you will.
Our lore. Because I
New
think
lore just dropped. Wake up, you know?
I think we made the mistake when we were talking in that the fact that we go into it assuming people know some of the backstory. And so one of the first questions on here, obviously being young parents, was Celia planned? And I would go with a real quick no. I don't know that I need to expand too much more on that one, but it was a good place to start.
Well, the other day my dad sent me a terrible TikTok of this girl and her father where it goes, my father's condom broke and now he has a child he has to like pay all his bills for, like 24 years ago.
No, it's actually a song on TikTok that a ton of people are recording. And the best part about it was my dad's condom broke in 1997 is the lyric. And a bunch of people on TikTok are changing it to like 98 or like 2004. And I'm like, no changing the year. It fits the deal or it doesn't.
That's not how TikTok works.
I know it doesn't. Everybody's
Showing
just
your
making it
age.
they're making it their own. I get it. But I find it funny because the song is 97.
Anyway, I was at work when I got it, so I couldn't listen to the song. So all I saw was the text that was like, my dad's condom broke back in the day and now he has me.
Inappropriate.
And dad wrote, oh no. And I was like, I don't know how many of my friends get sent TikToks like this by their father, but I sure do.
That's your fault. You brought me into this.
I think you brought me into this world.
That's very true. So
what else?
Well, that's actually really funny because now the second part, kind of a follow-up is, did we ever consider not keeping you? And I think we covered that a little bit, and maybe we just glossed over it in the first episode when we talked about it. But no, we never considered not keeping you. I think when your mother and I realized that we were going to have a baby, like I said, my initial responses, one after the other, were, it's going to be a girl, and I'm going to be a great dad. At no point did we talk about, not having you or giving you up or any of those things. So we always knew we were going to have you.
That's good.
Did we feel pressured to get married? I guess this one's for me. Did I feel pressured?
There's a lot of you questions. Maybe you should shake it up and go one to me, and then we can come back to
yours. Come a little bit later, but did I feel pressured to marry your mother immediately after we found out that we were going to have a baby? And I will say one of the things that our families both said was marriage just would complicate things and add more pressure to an already kind of pressurized situation. So a lot of people were like, well, you don't need to rush into marriage. Which again is neither here nor there, but we didn't really feel that pressure. We knew that we loved each other. We knew that we were going to take care of you. Like I immediately went into work mode to provide, but no, I don't think we did.
Well, what I could say is sometimes people who don't know very much about marriage tell other people if they should get married or not. And that's all I have to say on that.
For real. So this one is for you. So
goodness.
No, we got here real quick.
I love to talk.
So for Celia, did you feel pressure to find your soulmate young, and follow a similar life trajectory?
I don't think I ever felt pressure to find someone when I was young, in part because like from you guys or from really like external people. I think you and mom, so there's like two prongs to this because the answer is no, but so no from you guys. I never felt that way. I think you guys really empowered me from a young age to just really focus on myself and pursue things that made me happy, whether that was dating, it wasn't, or lots of different hobbies or different career options or camps or jobs or whatever. I think you guys always encouraged me to kind of suss out which path I was most excited about.
You've got time.
However, unfortunately for myself, I became a hopeless romantic at a young age because I thought everybody's parents were like my parents and got like engaged at Disney World at Cinderella's castle and were together forever and young and in love. And then I was like, woke up to the harsh reality of the world and was like, oh, that's not the case. Like several of my like exes have had parents that just like, I met them and they didn't seem like they liked each other at all. And you're just like, oh, so no, I never felt pressure from you guys. But yes, I think there was a part of me when like that time came and went. And now I'm like in my mid-20s where I was like, oh, I'm just like,
I love my cats now.
yeah, but also that like I have like a fulfilling career and I know I don't want kids. And I don't know that if I had felt pressure to like settle down and marry young. But I don't think you guys are rushed into like marrying. Like I was 3 when you guys got married. You guys didn't like.
You were 5.
I was 5 when you guys got married.
You were there.
Yeah, but I thought I was younger, so it doesn't really matter. But
2003 is when we got married.
But I'm saying like, I think there wasn't like a pressure to rush into getting married young to me because I don't even think, even as a kid, I saw your guys' marriage and relationship as being rushed.
Sure.
Because I was at your wedding as a kid.
So let's go. The next question is also for you.
Okay.
Because I think you covered that one pretty well.
Great.
Did you ever feel embarrassed or did you ever feel judgment from anybody like friends or other peers about having young parents?
Okay. I have one specific anecdote that I will tell you for this, and it is the story I always use because for the most part, no, it was always kind of like a cool gimmick for me. For the most part, I think you guys probably got more of the brunt of the embarrassment of teen parenthood. I don't think I ever felt embarrassed, except for, I remember it vividly. I was in high school. I want to say sophomore year. I was in an English class, and I don't recall what our unit was on, but we were reading like classical literature, and somehow the conversation devolved from, it might have been reading Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, which is a fave classic, which we read immediately after Catcher in the Rye, which is the worst classic I've ever read. So we were reading Sylvia Plath.
I will say that I agree with you there. I do not like that book.
Even when people are like, but here's why it's good, I'm like, but there are better versions of that story that have been written better since. So
sidebar.
That aside, we can have a Catcher in the Rye antis episode.
Books that people love that we hate.
Yeah. So we were reading and we were in this unit, and I just remember there was this girl in my class who kind of always was just like talking. And as much as I'm a talkative person in my personal life, I was very calculated in what like I spoke on or didn't in class, because sometimes I was like, I don't have anything to contribute. So even though sometimes I knew I needed to talk for participation points, I'm not just going to piggyback and like recycle what other people say. If I don't have something exciting and interesting or new to add, then I don't think my voice needs to be heard. Anyway, this girl got on this whole thing about how teen parents are the worst. They cannot provide for their children. They should not provide for their children. They should, like, teen parents who have kids should give up their kids for adoption to more caring families that, like, can't have kids and are, like, more deserving, basically. And I remember sitting there and stewing and getting so angry. And I was like, okay, the bell's going to ring in, like, 5 minutes, so I should just not talk. And then she just kept going, and our teacher wasn't stopping her. And I was like, she's saying like inflammatory things. She is basically like Handmaid's Tailing it of like, these women don't deserve their babies. We should give them to more loving families. And so I'm like, finally, I raise my hand, and I want to say my friend, I want to say Emma was in class. I don't know if she'll remember this. Emma, if you're listening, you let me know if you remember this or not. I remember raising my hand, and I feel like whoever was sitting next to me like stiffened visibly. And then my teacher called on me, and I was like, so it's really funny you're saying all those things because I had teen parents, or I have them rather. They're not teenagers anymore. Sure. And I went off. I was so upset. And I remember mom picked me up from school that day, and I recounted it to her. But I basically was like, I have had a more fulfilling, loving, encouraging environment than I think a lot of other people do who have like adult, mature parents. And so you saying these things is insane, because you're literally just saying that like all young parents are like washed up nobodies with like no futures, with like no potential. How like incredibly naive and selfish of you to say any of those things, especially when you do not know anybody else's like walk of life in this class. And so I got so angry, and I remember I told mom, she cried in the car because I had defended my teen parents that day. But I still feel that way, you know, anytime anybody says stuff like that. It's like, how dare you, because you have these assumptions off what? Reality television or like like movies like Juno, that you think you know what the decisions of like teen parents look like. It's incredibly naive.
No, I think to kind of jump onto what you're saying, I think the idea that age dictates whether or not you can be a good parent, is a terrible gauge to be like, oh, when you have kids in your 40s, you'll be much better parents, right? No. But I could probably do an entire episode or conversation around like the selfishness of some parents and the idea of like how children fit into a lifestyle. But I won't digress.
No,
I won't digress right now. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Wrap it up. Basically, I don't think people were ever. I never felt embarrassed. In fact, I felt very much like this is a cause I'll always fight.
So you mentioned a couple of things in here that kind of tee into one of the other questions, which again, these are very open-ended questions. Okay. But this is one for me. What do you think are the specific struggles of being a young parent? And essentially, they asked the question: were they financial? Were they mature? Did you have overbearing grandparents who thought that they knew best? And so, like, obviously, the first one is yes, right? Like when you're young, money is hard to come by because you're not established, right? But I countered that by, I think we've told you multiple times, like when you were really little, I had like 2 or 3 jobs for a few years. I worked a 9 to 5, and then I worked a retail job. And then on the weekends, I worked at bars as a doorman or a bartender. So it's like I was working all of the time to make sure that we could provide for you, because it was also really important that your mother stay home with you. Your mother worked a little bit as you got older, and we sent you to daycare for a little bit, but for the most part, it was for socialization. But you your mom stayed home with you when she was young, and that was something that we had made to be a real decision. The maturity struggles, I would say, if there were any, they were on my part, like when you were first born, because I think, I was 18, I was 19. I think it was really hard for me at first. Like, I obviously loved you and I loved your mother, and I was really focused on trying to do the right thing, but I'm also 19. So there were times where, my friends were all going out and I wanted to go out with my friends. And so there were times where your mother and I fought because I made the wrong decision. Like, I decided to go out with my friends, or, and
you broke up with mom,
very, 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 very briefly, because we were fighting for a little while, but I mean, it was not for a very long time. And yeah, I think, like I said, the maturity struggles were on my part. And then as far as overbearing grandparents,
I'll answer it. Hi, if you're listening, in the nicest way possible. As I've grown up, I think, and these are things you don't know when you're younger, but I do feel like my grandparents, when you guys weren't around, decided to parent me in the way that they best saw fit. And whether that was using, being deceptive about plans or about what we were and weren't doing. And then because you guys, when I was younger, were always very honest about things. And even now have always been very honest and communicative. And something I encountered younger was my grandparents saying we would do something, and then I would look forward to it. And then I would come back and be like, hey, like, are we doing this thing you said? And they'd be like, we never said that. And so, love you guys. But, in the nicest way possible, there were a lot of times when I was younger, I felt insecure around my grandparents because I knew how to react and behave with my parents, and they were acting like they were my parents and not like my grandparents. And there were times where I think I felt really confused because I was like, oh, my grandparents are like my friend's parents' age, but my friend's parents don't act like this, or my friend's parents are very hands off. And I felt like there were a lot of things where I'd be like nitpicked over small behavioral things, or I'd be nitpicked over ways that I behaved in certain situations because they were ways I behaved with you guys, but they were ways that my grandparents, I felt didn't see fit. And honestly, until I was older, now I just stand up for myself. Now there have been times where I've been like, you know what, I'm not going to stay here anymore, or I'm not going to let you say that about my friend, or I'm not going to let you pretend that this is going to happen. And so, now we're all good because I'm a grown woman who's not going to stand for these things. But I think when I was younger, I felt too like I couldn't come back and necessarily be like, I mean, now we all know. I've told you all
Yeah,
the things, but I think when I was younger, there was a bit of a weird division between, oh, these are my parents and these are my grandparents, because my grandparents were my friend's parents' age. And so I was like, is the authority all the same? And I do feel like my grandparents pulled rank a lot on me when I was younger in a way that you guys never did.
Well, I obviously you have feelings and thoughts on this.
I just said them.
No, I know. I'm saying, I think for me, the way I would answer that question is, I think the obvious one is yes, right? Because it's like anything. Again, this goes back to the age and competence type of thing, which is, there was probably an overabundance of advice and second guessing of the things that we did and the way that we did things, because that wasn't necessarily the way your grandparents would have done it. But then there are things that I think about from like when I was growing up where I'm like, well, I wouldn't have done that with you
right.
now. So, right. But that's how, I think that's how most people, I think that's how most people parent, right? They look at the things that their parents did and they're like, I liked these things. I didn't like those things. And I assume with my parents or your mother's parents that they looked at the things that their parents did, like Bubby and Judgy on my mom's side, or Vinny or Thelma, like my maternal and paternal grandparents. And they were probably like, well, we're not doing that. Like, I'm sorry, I am not doing that. And we did much the same thing. And were there times where, yes, like there were benefits, right? Because we had younger parents ourselves, not as young as you to us, but us to them, were fairly young parents. Like, they were able to take an active part of your life. They were able to, provide like different opportunities in addition to the ones that we were able to give you. So, so there were times there, but I think definitely as there were times that the lines blurred for you as a child, because of situations where if we're all together, like who's in charge. But I think most grandparents are that way. I think there were probably very specific times where the age factor came into play of, you don't know what you're doing because you're 20 years old or you're 19.
Well, and I think, again, obviously I gave some examples. I just also think part of it is like, it's like a subtlety. It's like a subtle thing. Like, you look back and now I say, oh, these were moments where I felt like maybe I was being parented and that's why I didn't like it. Yeah, but no, to say that, all that to say, absolutely there are things that my grandparents have all given me that have been incredible and kind and great things. But it is also to say, you grow up and you're like, oh, interesting. And I don't want kids, so
well, so here's
that's the big takeaway from all of it is that I don't want kids at all.
Well, so the next kind of questions are kind of tied all together. So, the next ones are: did we ever discuss having more children? And I think one of the things that probably a lot of people don't know, but like your mother and I, like we were pregnant. Like, we did have another pregnancy. You were in daycare at the time and your mother did have a miscarriage. So you could have had a sibling. And at that point we had thought about like, well, one, we had the same reaction. We're going to have another sister. You're going to have a sister. It was going to be another girl. But then I think when we obviously didn't have a second child, I think the older you got, the more we saw like your independence and thought about like, do we want to go through like having a baby again, or do we want to continue to just be the best parents we can be for you? So it kind of falls into the next question. Do we talk about having more kids, or, did you come to the decision? Like, how did we come to the decision? I think it was organic. We never were the, let's have, 2 children and there will be 4 of us, or, I came from a family of 4, your mother is one of 2. I can envision our life where we had 4 kids and had a bunch, or obviously the way that things went now, where we just have the one. It does seem crazy, right? To have that many children. I would say having one child who you get along with works out just fine, because there's always the chance that you have 3 siblings and you don't have very strong relationships with any of them, which is neither here nor there. But the second part of, or I guess the third part of this question, do we decide to have more kids? How did we come to that decision? The next part is actually for you. Do you ever wish you had siblings?
No. I mean, especially now the answer is no. I just don't think I'd be the person I am now if I'd had siblings. I mean, who knows who I would have been with them, but that's like you said, neither here nor there. I'll never know. But I've always joked when friends have asked that I don't think I have siblings because if I had siblings, it would have been an older one. I fully believe if I had been meant to have siblings, I'd have older siblings.
You should have been the baby all the time.
Not even like maybe I would have been like a middle child or something.
Yeah, well, middle children are lovely, so I wouldn't fault you
Obviously. So the answer is no, because I just think our family unit is very functional and loving as a trio. And not that there couldn't have been additions to that, like in the game of life when you're at the end and then it's like add another kid to your car. Maybe it could have been fine, but no, I don't feel like a regret or like a sadness like over not having siblings because I just don't know what it would have been like, so I don't miss it.
So just a really quick anecdote. When we first moved to Minnesota, you were only about 5 years old, 5.5. And I worked with a coworker and somebody had asked the same question to me at work. And again, this is me at 23 years old, and my managers at my job were probably, I thought they were old, and they were probably like 29 or 31. But I had a manager who asked this question in the break room. It was like, are you going to have any more kids? And we were like, no, we're done. We're not going to have any more. And at that point, by the time you were 5, we knew we weren't going to have any more. And I remember my boss calling us selfish and basically saying like, that's really selfish of you on your part, like to deny her having children. And now that I go back and I look at it, not giving you siblings was selfish on our part, that like we were holding that back from you. And now I really think about it as like when you get older and you learn about other people's hangups, that like, I don't know if the person that was getting on my nerve, like getting on my case, like wasn't capable of having children. And so they felt like they should have more.
Things you don't know.
You don't know. But what was great is I worked with this woman named Kate, and she was like, I'm an only child. She literally did the thing you did in the classroom. She was like, I was an only child. I have a great relationship with my parents. She's like, it was a little sketchy when I was in high school, and then I went off to college and I came back and it's really strong. She goes, but now I have like really great relationships with so many of my friends or my cousins. She's like, it doesn't stop you from having
close
really strong relationships.
Yep.
And like I said, like multiple siblings does not guarantee closeness.
Even most of my friends who have siblings, I don't feel like I could name any of them that have a particularly close bond. That's not true. Maybe one or two, but beyond that, no.
The only one I can think of your friends is like Jed. He always talks about how much he likes like him and his sister get along.
Oh yeah, and then I was gonna say Caroline and her brother get along pretty well.
So there you go. So there's a couple of them. So this is one for both of us. The question is basically like, how have you built family around you? So kind of continuing this thread as you've moved around the country together. And I think that's an interesting one, right? Because
building your community.
I think it's building your community. It's finding those people that share your interests. I think as adults, especially, we couldn't find them in the traditional places. Like when we would go to school and see other parents, that wasn't where it was going to happen, right? Like we learned that very quickly that, oh no, we are 15 to 20 years younger than most of these people. We're not going to be bros, right? Like we're not going to hang out after, we're not going to have play dates. People would have play dates with you and they would drop their kids off and leave and go do other stuff and use us as like babysitters essentially. But we found community eventually, and it came from like the different things that we did. Some of my closest friends came from work. Other people came from interests that we had. Like we were really interested. We were really strong proponents of the zoo when we lived in Minnesota. And so we connected to people there. And some of those people like fell off as friends, but others continue to be some of the strongest friends that we have. And I think when it comes to you, again, I think one of the big things that was a priority for us was fostering your interests and your ability to kind of like try out as many different things as you wanted to kind of find that community for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's another part here. I mean, you can either talk about kind of building your own community or talking about like you going off to college.
What about it?
Well,
what's the question?
One of the questions here is, was it easier or harder because we're so close, like for you to fly the nest essentially?
my battery's gonna die. I don't think it was that hard for me. I mean, I cried and it was sad, but I think we've always maintained a really close, like, texting kind of communication relationship. So I've never felt like worried about any long spans apart, because I know I'm just going to call and text and Snapchat and harass and post on social media and send you guys things. So, but in terms of finding community, I think you just hit the nail on the head for me. I've just always been encouraged by you guys to go out and find my flock. So I just go and I try new things, and I literally made my current group of friends by going to a board game bar with my best friend from college, talking to the cashier and the bartender, seeing them at a dance club later, and then following each other on Instagram. And a year later, they're like some of my closest friends. So there's the weird world is like a weird little place to be in. But yeah, I think just like I've just always been encouraged by you guys to go out and find those people. So I have.
Yeah. I mean, that was really, I think that's a really good one, right? Like, I guess there's a second part to the question, which is essentially, did it make it easier for us to let you go because we were secure in the relationship? And I think one of the things that we ended up doing was, when you selected a college, we felt really comfortable with the fact that like we could drive to where you were. I think it was like, it was a perfect mix of, you were far enough away that you were independent, but like if you needed us to be there, we could get there with some effort, not minimal effort, because a 7-8 hour drive, across boring Iowa and Kansas and Missouri isn't exactly quick. But I think for us, it was knowing that we kind of gave you the tools that we thought were going to help you be successful, kind of seeing you have that independence as you grew through high school. I think it was easy for us to say, like, you're going to be okay, but if you're not okay, we're around to support you and help you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think these are really good questions. I really
thank you for submitting them to us. If you did, send us a DM. And if you have more questions, you can slip into our DMs on social media, mostly Instagram at fatherdaughterexp, on Instagram and TikTok. And then you can follow us on YouTube, leave us a comment at the Father Daughter Experience, where you can find all our new episodes.
Every Wednesday.
And I think that's it for this one.
Yeah, no, this was really great. We love the interaction and we love the questions. So
awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.